back to the Mulberry Book Drop. Sarah.
Hi.
We're back again. Happy April.
Happy April.
Anything exciting going on?
You know what? No.
No.
And I kind of love it.
Yeah.
Kind of love it. When I tell you, I have just been at a slower pace and enjoying books and reading. It has been so nice. So nice.
Yeah. I know this is kind of like, the only thing I could really think of is I'm like, spring is in the air. I'm like,
Yeah.
That's just kind of, April's just that chill month.
I would say yes, but I have like 15 family members with birthdays.
Oh,
I
do you
don't,
really?
Yes. I'm like, what the heck? Anyways.
Yeah, I don't have that problem in April. I have
but
one.
They're all within the same like 10 days. That's what's crazy to me.
That is crazy.
Anyways, what have you been up to?
Not too much. We're just kind of chilling out, getting ready. We have, May's going to be really crazy for us.
Okay.
So we're just sort of preparing for everything. So, like, good stuff that we're preparing for.
Oh, yeah.
But it's, May's going to be a wild month.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It sure is.
Any quick reminders before we get into our fun topic for today?
Yeah. So we have this really cool mural outside the library. Have you seen it?
Literary Liftoff. Yes, I have.
Yeah, we do. So I think we've mentioned it before in the podcast, but Chelsea, who is the director of like 3 different departments in the city, was so wonderful and painted this amazing mural, free-handed, I believe. It is absolutely stunning. But make sure you go and take a picture and then tag us on Instagram or Facebook and use the hashtag, which is Literary Liftoff. We would love to see your picture, your kiddos' pictures, your dog's pictures. I would say cat if your cat goes out on a leash. But yeah, go and take a picture. We love it. And
I do still have to get my dog in front of it.
Yes, you do.
I do. Next time they bring him by.
There you go. So yeah.
Okay, Sarah, question.
Okay.
How long have we worked together now?
I'm counting the days in my head. We're at 10. I'm kidding. Like 6 years.
Yeah.
I know. The best 6 years of your life.
It honestly, I really can't disagree with that.
Yeah. Listen, guys, I just want you to know that the most important memory for her is not the day that she married her husband, not the day that she had her children. It's the day that she met me as her coworker. Okay. I'm kidding.
I actually do always remember the day that it was before my start date, but we had gone to the city yoga, and then we stopped by the library before we went home because we rode our bikes, and you guys were at the desk. Like a couple of you were working that Saturday, and you were like, "Oh my gosh, what's your first day? Are you so excited?" And I was like, "Well, I am now."
Yeah.
So
I remember that day.
Yeah.
Because when you told me that you rode bikes from your house, I said, ew, couldn't be me.
Yeah. Well, I kind of was like, I wonder if I could ride my bike to work. And then when I got to yoga and realized how sweaty I was like, no, I can't ride my bike to work.
I appreciate that. Because I'm just imagining you coming in for your first day now and I've been like, she's got to go.
I mean, I really didn't think about it. Okay. Do you have a specific memory, though, of when we first started talking about books together?
I do.
Okay, what's your memory?
I want to say that we would just randomly ask each other like, oh, well, what are you reading? And then we would each say whatever it was. Oh, cool. And that would be it.
And we talk about it so naturally now.
Yes.
It's kind of hilarious.
Yeah. But we just be like, oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
We read so differently.
Mine is a little different.
Okay.
Remember the bookmarks that we used to fill out for the quarterly drawings?
Oh, yes.
Remember we would like fill out a bookmark for every book that we read. And I remember our previous director, like we used to read each quarter and she would like pull a winner for something, it was just like little prizes. And, because that's part of our job, right? Like we need to be able to talk to people about books. So we need to be reading the books. And I remember I looked at the bookmarks and I was like, oh, this is really different because a majority of you strictly read like Christian fiction.
Yep, I was one of them.
And then we had an employee who like strictly read graphic novels, which I had never cracked a graphic novel yet in my life. And then there was me, as I called myself, the dark horse, with her thrillers and her Hamilton biography, like all alone in the corner.
Oh no.
And I was like, how do I talk to these people about books? We don't read any of the same stuff.
She doesn't. I'm kidding.
It was just really weird. I'll never forget when I like first looked at those bookmarks though.
Yeah. I forgot we did that.
Yes.
Oh, there were so many of them.
Yeah. Remember we had to read like some backlist. We had to read at least one new title a month. Like, you know, which I'm like, now we just read whatever we get our hands on. I just don't even think about it.
Which covers all of that, I think,
does.
at this point.
It does. But then it was sort of like, I don't really remember exactly how it happened, but next thing I know, you and I both were sort of in the young adult section together.
Oh, yep.
And we read One of Us is Lying.
So good.
Which is kind of like a thriller. Mm-hmm. I remember you were like, oh my gosh, Bethany, you like thrillers, right? This book.
Yeah.
So that, I think, was one of the first ones that we genuinely talked to each other about. And then the next one you gave me, because I was so excited you talked to me about the first one. I was like, I'll read anything Sarah gives me right now.
Oh my gosh.
Because this is how I get to know people. The Grace Year.
Oh.
So we did the dystopian.
So good.
It really was. And here we are 6 years later, and I'm pretty sure we just gave it to a patron.
Sure did.
Like 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. And then realistic fiction. I told you to read The Hate You Give.
Oh, yeah.
And then you told me to read Concrete Rose when that came out. And it just like, I feel like we just sort of started rolling down the hill after that.
And then like we have a whole podcast. Crazy. Crazy.
I don't know. I don't know what it was. But so I was looking through some of our previous stuff. Remember, we were both kind of going through our book list. And it was kind of amusing. So we went like through young adult. Mm-hmm. Then we like started to go into historical fiction. Mm-hmm. And like all of us at the library read The Tattooist of Auschwitz together. And that began your obsession with Heather Morris.
Yes.
You have read like all of her books.
Yes.
And then we all did Before We Were Yours.
Yes.
By Lisa Wingate.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we went through a whole phase with that. And then, Sarah, who did we go to next?
Megan Miranda.
We sure did.
Yeah. Which, if you are a longtime podcast listener, we did a whole fangirling episode, I want to say in our first season.
I think so, yeah. So, it might have been like our second episode for all I remember.
So it might be a little cringy to listen to, but it's still great. And so if you haven't listened to it, I do recommend you go back and listen to it.
Yeah.
So
I had mentioned to Sarah, because she was kind of curious about thrillers, but not really sure about the adult thrillers yet. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, okay, so there's this book, All the Missing Girls. And next thing I knew, like, you read it, and another one of our coworkers was reading it. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden we were reading all of her backlist titles. I didn't realize she had young adult books. Like, I read all of those.
And our director was so great and literally ordered, like, all her books in for us. And I was like, wow, real one.
Yeah.
I actually, you know, like, the term that you use, like, when books stay with you, that's, like, All the Missing Girls has stayed with me because I still remember I was house sitting at my grandparents' house for them. And, like, it was late. I was, like, already in bed reading and by myself. And I'm reading this book and I'm just devouring this book. And then I heard a noise and I said, this is where I go. This is my time. I'm about to head out. But I remember that. That's, like, something that sticks with me.
And I think, too, I think your situation was similar to mine because I feel like we talked about this. But, even if something's not the most perfect book ever written, if it's the first one that you've ever read that was told in that style, in this like unique way, like that stays with you. And that was one of the big things with that book was it the day before. So it's like you're reading a thriller that's literally told to you backwards. And that's not really a spoiler. If you decide to read it, you will learn that right from the beginning. But I think that's the same for me. It's like I had never read a book that was told to me in that way before. And I just thought it was so well done. And I'll always remember it.
Right. Yeah. Speaking of the young adult books, because some of the thrillers that I read, and I hadn't really ever read thrillers until we probably started talking about them. But I think I've mentioned it on the podcast before, but I'll Never Tell by Abigail Haas, Haas. But I read it in 2019, and I never read a book like that before. Like the girl's on trial for her best friend's murder while they're on vacation. And I want to say that they were like still in high school, which like my parents would never. Like I could barely go down the road.
I think that was one of the things we joked about. We were like, oh, no, my parents would never have let me go.
But like the plot twist got me so good that I still recommend that one to people. And then that's kind of where the Riley Sager books came in.
Oh, yeah.
And I read Final Girls. That was the first book I read by him. And that was in 2020. And I had been in a really bad reading slump. And I know that we've talked about those on the podcast before. And when I tell you that one got me out so quick, I flew through that book and I gave it 5 stars. So on
That's
Goodreads.
awesome.
So I said, so those were my thrillers, I said, oh, and then I went down this whole rabbit hole. And I know I've read a lot of Riley Sager's books. I haven't read all of Riley Sager books because not all of them are a hit for me personally. But it doesn't mean I don't enjoy them. So,
Yeah, I think this is one of the things I love about talking with somebody about books, because it's like, I think sometimes on a surface level, maybe it'd be like, oh, you guys might get along, but you're not going to be friends, right? But then you start talking about books and you start to learn what somebody likes, what they don't like, what they're looking for, maybe even what some of their content triggers might be. And then you start to get little bits and pieces of their personality. You realize you have more in common than you realized. And next thing you know, it's like you start building a friendship.
Right.
And I think, whether we want to admit it or not, like there are a lot of weeks where we spend more time with our coworkers than we do with our families at home. And so it's like, you want to be in a safe space where you're with people that you can talk about things with. And I just think that, especially you, like we bonded so hard over books. Like, I mean, you joked about it already, but like, look at what we've created because of that bond.
Right.
And I just think there's really something special to that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I love it. And I also feel like when I look at us sometimes at work, like at the desk, it has improved our confidence for talking to patrons.
Yeah.
And for expressing to patrons too, like, but I need you to tell me if you don't like something, like, so that I can genuinely help you find something that you like.
Right.
Like, I don't want you just to say you like something because I liked it. Like, your feelings are going to be different from mine. And I think learning to talk to each other has helped us talk to patrons.
Agreed. And I love it when we're both at the desk, because then I feel like we feed off of each other if we're excited about a book, or if someone comes back and be like, I didn't like it. And then we're both like, tell us why.
Yeah. Tell me more.
Okay. All right. Like, I love hearing that kind of stuff.
Yes.
I just think it's so cool.
It does. It makes it fun. Okay. So fast forward 6 years. How has your reading changed? And are you surprised by that change?
Yes, my reading has changed, and yes, I'm surprised by it. Yes, I'm surprised by it. I mean, we brought up Before We Were Yours by Lisa Wingate. I read that in 2019 for historical fiction. And then, we did the whole podcast episode where we just were like, what the heck about romance? And now it's literally my top genre. And I'm like, oh my gosh, who is she? But that one, I think that first one was People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry, 2022. And I talked about it a lot. And that's not typically people's favorite book by her, but it is, but it might be because it was my first one.
Yeah.
And I've never felt that way about a book.
She has a new book coming out. Make sure you get yourself on the hold list.
She does. But something that I realize that I do is when I do find a new genre, I fixate on it. So the thrillers, all I read were thrillers for a long time. And then romances and historical fiction. And it's just that's all my focus on when I was looking back at my dates and on Goodreads. I said, oh, okay, this is a habit. And right now, and then it usually gets put into a rotation. So eventually once I'm okay, kind of historical fiction out right now, but let me put it in the rotation and we'll swing back. Yeah. We'll get back to it. But I need a different genre right now. And so sci-fi has now been put into that rotation. So in my self-help books, those kind of things. And so I think that's how my reading has changed. Now I feel it's not an organized rotation, but it is a rotation. And I don't just read one genre now. I'm all over the board. Yeah. And I kind of love that because it's because, sometimes if you read someone that reads fantasy, all they read is fantasy.
Yeah.
And I'm not like that.
Well, and
keep them guessing.
You do still go back to your favorite, Christian fiction authors too. So it's not I know I said that thing about the bookmarks in the beginning, but it's you have just found some other things that you appreciate and enjoy as well. Right. And then when your favorite Christian fiction authors release a new book, you're on it. You're I'm reading that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and it's kind of, we don't always have my favorite Christian authors in the library system, and that's okay. Because then I find it somewhere else.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
That's cool.
Do you think yours has changed?
I do. So I know I kind of was the one that was like, hey, what if we do this for the episode? But then I had to really think about it. And I realized it's like, you know, life changes and we change and,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and what surprised me when I was going through my Goodreads, like I don't go necessarily in a rotation. Like I'm very just like, I'll read a romance and then I'll read a thriller and then I'll read a and then I got to do a book club book and then I got a non-fiction. So I'm just like all over the place.
Right.
But I was looking more at like my star ratings, and the ones that had like the higher ratings for me tend to be some of the darker stories.
Oh.
And I never would have considered myself like a horror reader, or even like dark comedy. I suppose you could call it dark comedy.
I do have dark humor.
Yeah, and I never would have thought that about myself because, you know, I appreciate like a scary movie, but like I can't watch them by myself very much, you know?
Yeah.
And I think what really has taught me to appreciate some of the darker stuff is actually doing the buddy reads on Storygraph, because having somebody that I could talk to and like break stuff down with actually helped me a little bit more to see that there's actually more to the story than just some kind of gratuitous whatever.
Right.
And so I was really surprised, like a lot of my higher rated books were some of those others that might be considered a little dark.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I was very much more, I mean, I enjoyed thrillers, but I didn't like the gory thrillers. Like I was very much a person that would skim through pages if it got too dark, or, you know, like there was a limit for me. And even, I know if you say horror, a lot of people think like, oh, Stephen King. And I'm like, some of his new stuff or his really, it's too much for me. I call them the classics. I like Carrie. Well, 200 page, you know, high school drama, something that in some level we can all kind of relate to, bullying and whatever, and, you know, that kind of thing. That's my extent, right? You know,
my extent is The Shining. It's the only book I've ever read by him.
Yeah, but I also think there are like there are some really incredible authors out there that are putting forth some of this stuff. And so like a good example that I was just talking to somebody at the desk about yesterday is Grady Hendrix, for instance.
Yeah.
A lot of his stuff is technically listed as horror,
right,
but they take place with these very real people. Like they could be your neighbors, right? So there's like a comfort in this, like, I might actually know a person like this, or that could be my mom, right? And then there's also a little bit of humor. So there's a little lightness in certain spots to kind of be like, we're going to be okay. Like things are going to happen, but like, we're going to be okay here. So just bear with me.
Yeah.
And I need that a little bit in some of my stuff to kind of help me get through it.
Yeah. Oh, I think he's a great example, because I have read a couple of his books and I loved both of those books.
Yeah.
Or they've left me thinking a lot.
Yes.
A lot. Yeah.
Well, do you, I was thinking we could take a minute to kind of share a couple books maybe that have surprised us over the last couple years that have changed our reading habits.
Sure.
You want to share?
You know, last year, I think when you did the Decades Challenge, the Adult Reading Challenge, I feel like that opened me up to so many different things that I was like, huh. And like books that I still think about.
Okay.
That I go, huh. Which is Mexican Gothic, of course.
I loved that book.
Yeah, but I still think about it.
Yeah.
The most random times, I'll just be like, I did listen to that book last year. Huh. I don't even remember what I rated it, but I remember like that was one that just really like stuck with me. And that one was a horror book.
Yeah.
So I guess technically. And I will say I haven't actually read a thriller in a long time, so I'm due for a thriller.
Okay.
But I think there was the one that was Reconstructing Amelia.
Oh yeah.
That one, I think I rated that one 5 stars, and it was really dark and really depressing. And
I remember you reading that.
but like it was something that I never read before. Like that. Well, I take that back. I did read 13 Reasons Why, and I feel like those are kind of similar to each other. But it had been a long time, and I said, wow. And then I had to read a romance book after that, which was probably another Emily Henry book. But it's like just those few books that sometimes with a genre, I go, I don't think it's really a genre for me.
Yeah.
And then even The Meg is a perfect example. Sci-fi.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I think those 3 or 4 books or whatever, just really changed how I looked at books, and like, because some of them are just books that I grabbed because they were on the shelf at the time.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I need something new, and I'm just not really feeling anything right now. And So let's try this one. And I ended up loving it. And I'm like, man, that opens me up to a whole new genre of books. So like sci-fi and...
My one kid, I think it was during one of the school breaks, and they were just like, I need something to read. And so I was like, well, let me know and I'll bring it home. And they had requested the Meg. And I was like, really?
Yeah.
You know, because we had seen the movie.
Right.
Loved the book.
Uh-huh.
Like flew right through it. A couple of days. Done.
Yep.
Yeah.
I did.
Perfect break.
Loved it. So, and then I went to get the second book and we didn't have it in the library system. And I said, not meant to be. Gotta go. So I think those three are ones that just really way out, even outside of the historical fiction and the romance and the, so.
I like that.
Yeah.
So one of the ones that I had marked down is called I'm Starting to Worry About This Black Box of Doom.
Oh.
And it's by Jason Pargin.
Mm-hmm.
And so all the ones that I brought with me today to talk about, I originally rated them all 4 stars, but they are all ones that I still think about all the time. So remember I told you I was going to make a shelf on my one app where it's like books I can't stop thinking about?
Yes.
Yeah. So that was kind of where I was going with that. But it's got like a ridiculous ending, but I was so completely entertained the whole way through by this like band of misfits. So it's dark humor. It's kind of wild and outrageous. But like the basic premise is this driver like rolls up and there's this woman sitting on a black box. And so she basically says, I'll give you $200,000 to transport it across the country for me, but you can't look inside. You can't ask any questions. You can't bring any trackable devices. And that's it. Go. And like, so exactly. What's in the box? You know what I mean?
I'm gonna look.
Yeah. And it was just fun. And it was very dark humor, like the whole time. And it's not necessarily something I ever would have picked up 6 years ago. Like, I probably wouldn't have even looked at it twice. It would have been like, whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
So.
And then another one I had was, do you remember when I read the book Horror Movie?
Yes. And it's kind of always been on my list.
Yeah. And it was, so, one of our coworkers read it. Matt read it. Like, I don't know. For some reason, this book, I still keep thinking about it, but it's like, part present day, and you have these like obsessed fans, right? Like there was this movie that was made, it was supposed to come out, and like they never actually finished. Like, so there's this whole cult following, right? And then there's a whole other section of the book though that's like the original screenplay of like what they had tried to create initially, like what they were doing. And so you're kind of seeing this whole like before and after, and you're kind of like, what's real, what's not, what's happening. And I was so invested in. It really kind of gives you a fun look into, you know, like those movies that you watched when you were a kid and they kind of get that like cult following, and then people want to go to Comic-Con to like see the actors. Like it had that, because there is like a whole plot line to it with that. Okay. And so the whole time you're kind of like, yeah, I get that, because I'm kind of one of them about some movies. You know what I mean? It was fun, but it's just
have to put that back on my list.
Yeah, man. People can be intense fanatics. I don't know. But it was fun. Yeah, that one was called Horror Movie by Paul Tremblay.
Okay.
Did you have another one that you want to go before I do my other ones?
I don't. I talked about all mine. Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. So another one, this one I think it's barely over 100 pages, and it's called A Short Stay in Hell, and it's by Stephen L. Peck. And I constantly am thinking about this one. But like, imagine if you lived like your whole life exactly how you thought you were supposed to, right?
Mm-hmm.
You pass away and you end up in this vast library, and you can only escape it if you find the singular book that holds the whole story to your life.
Ooh.
And it's this like never ending library.
Ooh.
So where do you begin looking?
Oh, I want to read it.
What do you do?
Yeah.
I mean, it really, this is something that I constantly am like, I don't know what it is about this book, but I can't stop thinking about it. And it's a dark premise. It's not something I ever would have considered picking up 6 years ago. Like, I would have been like, whatever, it's a book, you know. And then I also probably, this is so snooty, I would have been like, 100 pages. Is that even a whole book?
Right.
And now I'm like, there's a couple books I've read that are like barely 100 or 200 pages. And I'm starting to have this really intense appreciation for a really well put together short story or novella.
Yeah.
Because there have been a few that have really stuck with me.
I like that.
Yeah. I mean, that might be,
want to read that one.
That might be a future episode.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll have to think on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Note to self. And then the last one, I had gone to one of the training days, and the speaker that was there is incredible. And she was talking about a couple of books and explaining like how she reviews them and how she tries to talk about them. Because, you know, that's the whole thing, is like to explain it enough where someone can make a decision about whether or not they want to read it, but not spoil it.
Right.
Right. And it's really hard when you're excited about a book to not spoil the book.
Yes.
So it's called Severance, and it's by Ling Ma. And this book is, I was never super huge about like dystopian and apocalyptic things, like a lot of the zombies, like it's just never interested me. But this book is actually listed as apocalyptic satire. And I was like, well, maybe. Okay, it's like the most probably boring apocalypse that most people would ever go to, but I loved it. And so like, yeah, there's a plague, but like instead of zombies and chaos, it's just kind of like a slow walk through what happens now.
Interesting.
And I really enjoyed it. Like there were a couple other things that you kind of learn because of the people, like some of their jobs, like, so you kind of get like an idea of that. And the way things were described, I suppose you could probably say it's a little bit like literary fiction, which I'm a dialogue person, so sometimes I struggle with literary fiction.
Right.
But there was something about the way the author was writing it that I just felt very invested in it, and I just really wanted to know what's going to happen.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I honestly, like from what I was reading when I first started at the library, like this is a huge departure for me. And wow, are there some really good books that are still out there for me to find.
Yeah. Well, and like thinking about it, like, I mean, these are our jobs, and both of us loved books before we started at this job. And I know that like you worked at a bookstore, but before the bookstore, you also loved books. And like, isn't that the whole point of like a job, is that you are supposed to grow? And so our growth just looks a little bit different than other people's.
Yeah.
Not saying we don't grow in other areas, but I feel like in like our people skills and, you know, talking to them, and but like also within reading, you know, like I do love it when people come in and go, oh, thank goodness you're here. Like I need someone to help me find a book. And I'm like, what do you, I said, me? You want me to help you? Like honored.
Yeah.
Honored. And I'm like, I feel like I should be paying you, but we're not going to do that. So, but that's the whole point, I think, is for us to grow, and we both have. So in such interesting ways.
Yeah. I will. So just a little weird thing here. I hosted one of my book clubs yesterday, and I had asked this book club, I said, you know, we've been together for a while now, and I'm just curious if this is something that would interest you. And if it does, I want to select it together. But I said, what if we do 1 month where we read a something by Shakespeare, and then the following month we read something that is based on that Shakespearean play.
Ooh.
And so they were all like, oh, maybe. And so I brought some that would be options for us, right? So like something that was based on, you know, Taming of the Shrew, and something that was based on, oh my gosh, now I just blanked on what the other one was. But anyway, the one they picked was Othello. And I was like, okay. So I ordered every version of Othello that I could get for them, and everybody picked the one they wanted. So I had a couple of people had the original play. I had somebody with the No Fear Shakespeare, and they were just like, nope, I only read the, I didn't read like the Shakespeare. I strictly read this side that was like, this is how we would read it today. This is what they're saying. Okay. So like, that was what I needed right now. And I'm like, cool. Your mama read the graphic novel. And then I had somebody else who was like, I couldn't do it, so I watched the movie, but I put the subtitles on. And so I read the movie. And I was like, I love all of this so much. Yeah. And then I was left with the one that was left behind, which was a 57-page, concise, here's the highlights, this is what happens. And it read like a telenovela. Like it was all the drama, just every page, all the drama. And we had the best discussion. Yeah. And so again, like 6 years ago, when they first said, hey, I'm going to have you take over adult book clubs, would I ever have wanted to read Shakespeare? No. But I've been getting to know these people for years now. Right. And it's an incredible group, and it's a very safe space. And it's always welcoming if somebody wants to come and join us. Like, we always welcome new people. And, you know, we'll give you time to get to know us, and you speak at your comfort level. But like, because it was them, and because I was able to say, like, listen, here's the version I read. So if I'm missing something important, please interrupt, please correct me, please fill me in. But like, I also read some, I read the Wikipedia page for like the 5 acts to really make sure like I knew what happened. And I read a couple of write-ups. Somebody had like a whole, I'm a smart person, and I did this whole write-up about the handkerchief, you know. So I did my research. But we just had the best time talking about it, and I was really surprised. And so again, that's a difference though of like where I was 6 years ago to where I am now. And so it's kind of like talking to you, like where we were 6 years ago. And now, like, I feel like even if you have no interest in the book I'm reading, I know that I can talk to you about the book I'm reading.
Yeah. Well, and especially like when you're excited about the book, and I'm like, tell me more. And then we always hit each other with the, are you planning on reading this?
Yes.
And then if we say no, we're like, all right, let me spoil it then.
Yes. And also that, like, you know, sometimes one of us will be having our lunch and the other one's working, but we're in that same room in the back. And all of a sudden you're like reading this book and you're like, oh no. And you're like crying. Yeah. But like, I can cry in front of you because books make us cry sometimes, and that's okay. So like, I don't know.
That happened the other day, guys. And I looked at Bethany and I said, don't mind me. I just need a minute.
It is a judgment-free zone.
Yeah.
I urge you all, get some book friends, talk to your friends about books, come talk to us about books. It's the greatest thing.
Yeah.
It's such a good way to get to know people. Okay, Sarah, this was really fun.
It was. I love this.
Thank you for
look at the growth.
Looking back, looking forward, all of this stuff. What are you reading now?
I am reading The Unselected Journals of Emma M. Lyon by Beth Brower.
Oh, you started it?
Yes. So, well, by started it, I mean, like, I think I'm 2 pages in. Okay. Right. But, like, it's set in 1883. It's a historical fiction. And it's about Emma. And she's returned to her London neighborhood. So I'm curious to see, okay, well, what does that mean?
Yeah, because there's like 7 journals.
There's a lot.
I think we have 7 of them. Yeah, they get checked out all the time.
All the time. I know. I had to wait forever for it.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, all right.
Let me know how it is. I'm curious about that one.
Same. So what are you reading?
I am literally going to be starting this probably on my lunch break today, but it's one of my next book club books, and it's called Red at the Bone, and it's by Jacqueline Woodson. And according to the blurb, because like I said, I'm literally going to start it today. Right. It begins in 2001, and it's like at a coming of age ceremony for the Melanie's 16-year-old, for her 16th birthday. But it's going to unravel the history of like her parents and her grandparents. And so we kind of discover how we got to this moment in 2001.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I'm not sure exactly how all that's going to happen. I'm just, about to crack it. But I'm excited. This author's been on my list for a while. And if the name sounds familiar to you, I believe they're the author of Brown Girl Dreaming, which was nominated for like a ton of awards, and
because I was like, oh, she does sound familiar.
Yes, yeah, and I think that was one of the big ones that they had. So yeah, I'm excited about this one. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah,
but Sarah, thanks for coming with me today.
Of course,
on this little adventure.
Yeah.
And where can people find us?
All right. So if you guys, if your reading has changed as much as ours has, we would love to hear it. We would love to hear if you have a favorite book or something that you think we would like, because we're always willing to try something. Please email us at themulberrylibrary@gmail.com or message us on Instagram or Facebook. So with that,
happy reading, Mulberry. Thank you.